Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So in this video, we're actually gonna finally do a paper 2. So today we'll be doing the May 2019 CXC past paper, which is paper 2. All right. So now this is just the front of the paper. And this is how the paper would normally look. So just ensure that it's the correct subject paper that you got. And then you would normally put in your registration number as well as the center number. As it winds down to the date, you'll know what's your registration number and what's the center number. You also need to fill out your name of school, and please ensure, I repeat, please ensure that you put your name, your full name, write it in caps, all right? Put your date of birth, please sign the paper, all right? And that's what they will ask you to do in the first part. On to the next page, so which is section A. Answer all the questions in this section. So you're expected to answer every question. Please do not leave out any questions. All right. Question 1. Figure 1 shows apparatus that was set up to measure the rate of transpiration of a potted plant located in a room beside an open window for a 12-hour period. So describe the procedure that uses the apparatus shown in figure 1 to investigate the rate of transpiration of the potted plant within the 12-hour period. So we have to look at the diagram so we can best come up with the procedures, all right? So we have a potted plant, we have the polythene bag, it's sealed here, they're telling us it's well watered, and we have a beam balance. So with this information and what we have read, we should be able to come up with a step or procedure. So step 1, obtain a medium-sized potted plant and water it. So I'll add and water it to this. So we're going to obtain the medium-sized potted plant and then we're going to water it. So just quickly add it and water it. So now it would be well watered. Step 2. Measure the weight of the potted plant using the beam balance. So we're going to measure the weight with the water in it. Step 3, record the weight. Step 4, place the potted plant near the window over a 12-hour period, and that information was given. Step 5, after 12 hours, record and measure. So I have length here, but it should be weight. So record and measure the weight of the potted plant. So this would be the after weight. So after the 12 hour, this would be the weight. That's what we need to measure. And then 6, tabulate the results. And tabulate, if you don't know, it means to create a table with the results. All right. So with that, we would have created a good procedure. So the next part of the question now. Question 2. State 1 precaution that should be taken to ensure that the results are accurate. So I have 2 precautions, so you can use any of them. Ensure the plant is well watered and ensure the polythene bag is secured properly. 3, suggest 2 factors that may affect the rate of transpiration of the potted plant. So I have temperature, which can affect the rate. So whether it's high or low, humidity also can affect the rate, whether it's high or low. Light intensity, whether it's bright light or dim light, and air movement, whether it's windy, which is if there is a rapid wind or slow wind. So it's windy or it's not so windy. So the next part of the question is B. So if you realize that these questions are divided into A, B, and then A, B are divided into I2. So you have to pay attention to those also. B. So the graph in figure 2 was constructed using the results obtained from the investigation in which measure the rate of transpiration over a 12-hour period. So this is the data that they would have gathered if they were measuring the rate over the 12-hour period. So the next question would have stated, draw a suitable table and record the results presented in the graph. So you would have to go back to the graph to see what your table would be looking like. And based on the table, one of your columns would have a heading, weight of the potted plant, and the next one would have the heading, time of day. So you would have to spend some time and go through the data and place it in your table. So just to help you with the first one, so now my first time of day would have been 6 a.m. and then my plotted plant, so the weight of my plotted plant would have been 90. So 90 to 6 a.m. My second weight would have been 7 a.m. and my weight would have been roughly 86 based on this. All right. So you, based on what I'm showing you, you should be able to complete the table. So just like I said, the first one was 90 to 6 a.m., 86 to 7 a.m., and this is the rest of the table. All right. So you realize at the top, I gave my table a title. All tables need a title. You can always get your title from the graph. Look at the graph. They gave us a title, a graph showing change in mass as well of a well-watered plant over a 12-hour period. You can get it from here, or you can just utilize what you have in the columns. We have the weight of the potted plant against the time of day, a table showing the weight of the potted plant and the time of day. All right. So please complete your table. This is a completed table. If you need to pause the video to complete the table, you can do so. So, during what time period was the rate of transpiration the highest? So they are basically asking us, what time period did they lose a lot of water? To get this, you have to go back to the graph. You can also use your table, but it's easier to see it on the graph. So I'm going to go back to the graph to find where transpiration was at the highest. So I'm on the graph. So for transpiration to be at the highest, then this on the graph, it should show that it's the lowest weight. So it's the least weight, or the less, or the smallest weight that is recorded rather. And that is right here where we have the dip. So that's the lowest weight recorded, which happens at 3 p.m. So that's the time period. All right. So that's the answer. So if we go back now, we should have 3 p.m. there. So I have it there, so 3 p.m. So the next question is, suggest 2 reasons for the shape of the graph during each of the following time periods. And the first time period is 6 to 8 a.m. So if we go back to the graph now, so 6 to 8 a.m., which is the first part. So 6 to 8 a.m. would be right here. So you realize that we started to have like a small dip, a small loss of water. So now you have to explain what is going on there. So at 6 to 8 a.m., we would have a low temperature, and that should mean that the transpiration is low, meaning that the loss of water is low. So it's also early in the morning, so that would mean that the sun is not so bright, so we won't have a lot of transpiration happening. And also because it's early, the atmosphere would be humid, so the atmosphere would be moist. All right. So for the next question, at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So we're going to go back to see what is happening at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then at 12 noon to 2 p.m. So the first thing we're going to look at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Then we're going to go to at 12 noon to 2 p.m. So to get this, guys, you always have to go back to your graph. It's easier seen on the graph. So the first one was from 9 a.m. So this is 9, which is here at 80 to 11 a.m. So you really realize that there's like a drastic decrease in weight. All right, look at this, it's decreasing. So there's a drastic decrease in weight. So now at 9 a.m., there is an increase in transpiration. So meaning that there is more water being lost. As there is significant loss in water by the potted plant, the temperature increase, thus transpiration increase. There is also an increase in light intensity. So by 9 a.m., the sun would have, been shining bright. And then the next one is from 12 noon to 2 p.m. So from 12 noon to 2, you realize that it's constant from 12 to 2. Look at it, it's constant. So at this point now, transpiration is constant, as I said. The temperature and the light intensity remains the same, hence the amount of water is equal, all right? So if you're worried about what I'm saying and not being able to make a note of it, it's already here on the screen. So all you have to do is pause the video and get it. Question C on page 8. So discuss how transpiration helps plants to move water from their roots to their leaves. So water enters the vacuole of root, here is biosmosis. Water moves through the cortex of the root, biosmosis. Water is then pushed into the xylem. The forces of cohesion and adhesion causes the water molecules to form a column in the xylem. Water moves from the xylem into the mesophyll cells, and then it evaporates from their surfaces and leaves the plant by diffusion through the stomata. So this part about the mesophyll cells, please know that the mesophyll cells are actually in the leaves, all right? So it's gonna move from the xylem into the mesophyll cells, which is in the leaf, and then it's gonna leave the leaf. So it's gonna evaporate from the leaf if it's not used in photosynthesis, all right? So 2, while absorbing water from the soil, plants absorb mineral salts such as magnesium, calcium, and nitrogen. State one of the role of magnesium, one role of calcium in plants. So magnesium is needed to help to make chlorophyll, and calcium is needed to make the cell walls at the tip of the roots and stem. 3, nitrogen is used by plants to make protein. So just 2 reasons why plants need protein. So just like humans, plants need protein to make new cells for growth and repair, to regulate phototropism, and mediating the response of plants to light or dark reaction. 3, involving energy generating reactions, intracellular structure, and membrane transport. So those are the reasons why plants need nitrogen. So question 2. So question 2 is talking about this diagram of the carbon cycle. All right. So question 1, state the name of the processes numbered I to IV. So now we can look at the diagram. So we're trying to find the name of all the processes. So looking at the diagram, and it already told us it's the carbon cycle. So the first one, I, is carbon leaving the atmosphere, going into the tree. So that's definitely photosynthesis. The second one is the carbon going back to the air, but it's leaving the trees. So that's respiration, more specifically plant respiration. And then the third one right here is definitely combustion coming from factories. And then for number 4, if we look at it, it's coming from the animal. So the decomposed, so it's coming from the animal and going back to the atmosphere. So that's respiration also, but it's animal respiration. So now B. Name one type of organism responsible for decomposing organic waste, and that organism is bacteria. So worms, maggot, detritivore, fungi, slugs, and snails, they also help to decompose waste, but what they're really looking for is bacteria. All right, so now the next question. 2. Explain 2 ways in which a type of nutrition carried out by the organism named BI is different from that is carried out by plants. So remember, we're focusing on bacteria for the most part. So 1, their materials and products are different, meaning that the materials that bacteria use and also the products that they give off are different from what plants use and what plants would give off. So bacteria eat many dead things to get nutrients, while plants does not. Remember, plants are autotrophic, they make their own food as they depend on decomposers to get some nutrients, example, carbon. So 2, plants make their own food and decomposers do not. 3, worms can help to circulate air as they move through the soil. So that was 1 if you were thinking about worms, all right? But any of these 2 should be okay. Well, rather, any of these 3 should be okay. So 3, state 2 reasons why the type of organism named in BI is important in the ecosystem. So remember that our organism was the bacteria. So how are they important in the ecosystem? So they keep nutrients moving in the food web. So if the decomposers do not do their jobs, the producers would not get the nutrients they need and would die. It helps to sustain various environmental cycles. So doing all of that, you should be getting your points. Then C, suggests 2 reasons why carbon dioxide is described as a greenhouse gas. Reason 1, carbon dioxide traps heat just like a glass roof of a greenhouse. So that's one of the reasons. 2, it absorbs and emits radiant energy within the thermal infrared range. So with reference to the carbon cycle, suggests 2 strategies individuals can use to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So they're asking us for 2 strategies. So 1, we can decrease the combustion of fuel, which is the burning of fuel. And 2, we can increase planting, that is, we can plant more. All right, moving on. Question 3A. So figure 4 shows a diagram of the human respiratory system. Label on the diagram the 4 structures that are directly involved in breathing. So I've already labeled my diagram. I have the rib, the left lung, the alveoli, and the diaphragm. So now B, state how any of the 3 structures labeled in A function in the breathing during inhalation. So during inspiration, the muscles of the diaphragm contracts and the diaphragm flattens, while in expiration, the diaphragm muscles relax and the diaphragm domes upward. So that's the shape, the structure, domes upward or move upward. So the volume inside the thorax and the lungs increases and pressure inside the thorax and the lungs decreases. So that's during inspiration. So the rib moves up and out in inspiration. So those are the 3. C, explain how any 2 features of human lung make it an efficient respiratory surface. So any two feature, how does it make it an efficient respiratory surface? So I have one, the epithelial surfaces are kept moist so that the oxygen and the carbon dioxide can dissolve in this fluid and then diffuse through the alveoli. Two, the lungs are made up of many alveoli, which are air spaces surrounded by very small air sacs. These sacs are richly supplied with blood capillaries and they form the respiratory surface. All these air sacs together provide a huge surface area. This is necessary so that sufficient oxygen can be obtained to release the very large amount of energy humans require. So D, breathing rate can be affected by several factors. Explain how exercise and smoking may affect a person's breathing. So the effects of exercise. So during exercise, breathing becomes deeper and faster as the body is using or spending more energy. The increased breathing will supply more oxygen to release energy for activity and remove carbon dioxide. So exercise increases the rate and depth of breathing. The heart rate will also increase. So with smoking now, smoking increases the breathing rate. A buildup of tar along with inflammation causes the airways to thicken, thus resulting in smaller passageway for air to pass. The breathing will become faster and more labored. And more labor is needed to move the same volume of air. So they're telling us because the passageway is narrowing, the breathing will become more faster and more labor, more work must be added so that you can breathe the same amount of air if you were normal. Section B. So we have completed section A now, and we're on to section B. So question 4. Describe two events that occur in each of the following stages of meiosis 1. So they gave us prophase, anaphase, and also telophase. All right. So what happens in prophase 1? So the chromosomes shorten, thicken, and becomes visible. Homologous chromosomes forms a bivalent. Centrioles separate, forming spindle fibers. Each chromosome duplicates itself, forming two chromatids joined at the centromere. Genetic crossing over of chromatids occur and the nucleolus disappears, and all of that takes place in prophase 1. So the most important thing is to mention the bivalence and that genetic crossing over happens here. All right. In anaphase now, anaphase 1, the bivalents are going to separate and the spindle fibers are going to pull the homologous chromosomes to opposite side or opposite poles. In telophase, the nuclear membrane forms around each group of chromosome. Spindle fibers disintegrate. Centrioles are going to divide the cells. So centrioles are going to divide rather. The cells are going to constrict at the equator, forming two cells with the haploid number B. Mutation and sexual reproduction are two processes which can lead to variation in the population of a species. State one way in which both processes are similar and two ways in which they differ. So now, variation can take place in the zygote for both. So that means that they're similar because variation can happen in the zygote, in the children, rather. Then mutation and sexual reproduction are going to lead to genetic variation. So both of them happening is going to cause genetic variation. So those are two similarities. And then differences now. Mutation occurs randomly, meaning that you cannot predict when and where it will happen, while sexual reproduction does not occur randomly. 2, mutation creates a new allele, while sexual reproduction utilize allele that is already there. So whenever you see me with SR, it's sexual reproduction. So 3, mutation to some extent is harmful, while sexual reproduction to some extent is not harmful. So I have some other differences. So I have mutation can result from chemicals / radiation, while sexual reproduction does not result from those. Mutation can result from the formation of a new gene in the species. Sexual reproduction does not. Mutation occur in body cells or somatic cells, sexual reproduction, and gamete cells, while sexual reproduction is only gametic cells. Last one, mutation can be inherited or not, while variation in sexual reproduction is inherited. Let me repeat that again. So mutation can either be inherited or not, but in sexual reproduction, it's inherited, all right? So the variation is inherited, but in mutation, it can be or it is not inherited. So the next question, which is B2. Explain the difference between variation in a community and variation in a population, and suggest one way in which diversity benefits the community. So variation in a community affects the phenotype and genotype of an organism in the community, while variation in a population describes the existence of different alleles or alternative forms for a given genes. Diversity benefits the community as it ensures that the community change with the environment. Hence, the community will survive. All right. Briefly explain how bacteria may become resistant to antibiotic. An antibiotic resistance occurs when an infection responds poorly to an antibiotic that once could treat it successfully. This happens because the bacteria has a mutation or a change in their DNA that gives them a new protein that has the tool to fight against the bacteria, or the antibiotic rather. So they get a new protein that has the tool to fight against the antibiotic, all right? So occur should not be here. So the bacteria has a mutation or a change, all right? So we're gonna change occurs to has. So now, next question. So question 5. Describe the location and structure of the normal human female reproductive system. The female reproductive system is positioned in the pelvic region. There are 2 ovaries, each usually releasing a single ovum or egg every other month into the funnel of the oviduct. The ovum is moved along the oviduct or fallopian tube by the beating of the cilia, which line the tube. If sperms are not present, then the ovum moves down the uterus out of the body during menstruation. The uterus is pear-shaped structure in which the oviduct enters. The lower end of the uterus, the cervix, consists of a ring of muscles closing the uterus, where it leads to the vagina, which with the urethra open to the outside of the vulva. So we're on to 5B. A newly married couple wants to delay having children for a few years. Suggest one temporary contraceptive method that the couple could use to prevent pregnancy at each of the following stages. So preventing fertilization, the couple can use a condom or a diaphragm. To prevent ovulation, the couple can use the pill. To prevent implantation, the couple can use the intrauterine device, which is the IUD or the coil. 5C. Explain how each contraceptive method suggested in B works to prevent pregnancy at each of the following stages. So preventing fertilization, we said it was a condom or the diaphragm. So a condom or a rubber sheet placed over the erect penis before intercourse, it catches the sperm, preventing them from entering the female. So if we were talking about the diaphragm, it would be placed at the mouth of the vagina, and it would do the same. It would prevent the sperm from entering. And with using the female diaphragm, you have to use the spermicide to help to kill some of the sperms. So preventing ovulation. A pill is taken daily for 21 days of the menstrual cycle. It is not taken during menstruation. It contains estrogen and progesterone, which prevents ovulation. So preventing implantation. The IUD, or a metal or plastic loop inserted into the uterus by a doctor. Question 6. State the name of the final products of digestion for each of the following types of nutrients. So we have carbohydrate. So the final product would be monosaccharide, for example, glucose. Protein, their final product would be amino acids. Fat or lipid, their final product would be 3 fatty acid and 1 glycerol molecule. So you can just put fatty acids and glycerol. 6B, in addition to macronutrients in A, list 3 other types of nutrients in the diet that would promote the maintenance of good health. So I have vitamins, minerals, water, and also dietary fiber. You should be getting your marks if you have any of these 3. 6C, which is 6CI. So Mary is a diabetic, but her husband Marvin is not. Explain how the concentration of sugar in Marvin's blood is kept within the normal range several hours before and after he eats a carbohydrate meal. So before the meal. So even though Marvin did not eat a meal, his glucose level will be kept normal, as glucagon will be released when the person has not eaten or have less food. So that means that they would have a low level of glucose. The glycogen that is present in the muscle and the liver will be converted to glucose by glucagon, and the glucose formed will enter the blood, and the blood sugar is kept normal. So after he has had a high carbohydrate meal, so after his meal, his glucose level will increase. The glucose is detected by the islet of Langerhans in the pancreas that secretes insulin to reduce the levels. So excess glucose is converted to glycogen, and stored mainly in the liver and the muscle. When the glucose level is low, glucagon will be released to convert glycogen to glucose. So 21, explain why Mary is advised to limit her consumption of the simple carbohydrates. So please remember that Mary was the person who actually have diabetes. So Mary is advised to limit her consumption as her pancreas is not secreting enough insulin, so she cannot break down so much carbohydrate. Sugar accumulates in the body and is excreted because the concentration of glucose in the blood is greater than the kidney can deal with. The kidney tubules fail to reabsorb all the glucose. The glucose can be detected in the urine by a test, all right? So we're at the end of another review session. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.